friends. Welcome to a very special conversation that I get to have with Kelly Broadwater, one of our newest experts in BariNation. Hi, Kelly.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for joining us. There have been a lot of questions that have come in from members of our community and people just in the greater bariatric community wanting to know a little bit more about this amazing deep dive you are going to be offering in BariNation. It's a 6-week program, and you are going to teach people how to apply the 10 principles of intuitive eating to our bariatric life. So I appreciate you taking the time to kind of break down what this experience is going to be all about and answer some of the biggest questions that we've been getting from people about it. So awesome, cool. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in with our very first question. What is intuitive eating?
Well, that would be a good first question. So it was a philosophy that was developed by two registered dietitians, kind of in response to diet culture and all the messages that we get. And it's really about trusting your body. It's relying on your internal cues of hunger and fullness, and not relying on external cues such as diets or strict rules or rigid guidelines.
Yes. And my understanding is intuitive eating is not about what you eat. Intuitive eating is about us getting in connection again with what our body needs, and then taking it a step further and aligning it to our medical guidelines that we need to follow because we're bariatric patients. So it's taking these two very important things and bringing them together in a way that works for us.
Now, I will say intuitive eating was not developed for bariatric patients. I have put my spin on it as an eating disorder specialist and a psychologist that deals with food and eating and weight and body all day long to modify the principles for bariatric patients specifically. So if you just read the intuitive eating workbook or learn about it on your own, there's lots of podcasts and other things out there that aren't bariatric informed. So I give it kind of a little bit different lens.
Yes. So let's talk about that. There are 10 principles of intuitive eating, and I'm just going to go through the list.
Sure.
And when I'm done with that, will you kind of tell us why it's so important that we learn how to apply these to our bariatric life?
Mhm.
Okay. So 10 principles of intuitive eating. Reject the diet mentality, honor your hunger, make peace with food, challenge the food police, discover the satisfaction factor, feel your fullness, cope with emotions without using food, respect your body, movement, feel the difference, and honor your hunger with gentle nutrition.
Yep.
So those are the 10 guidelines.
Yeah.
So how do we modify or change those or apply them to our bariatric life in a way that makes sense for us?
Yeah, so I kind of give the analogy of, when I do yoga, I have some issues with my knees. So I have to modify certain poses and can't do them the exact same way, but I still get the benefit from doing yoga and from doing those poses just in a different way. It's kind of the same way with modifying intuitive eating for the bariatric lifestyle. It doesn't, completely translate, but with that kind of bariatric informed perspective, it can definitely be useful, especially as you get further out, you get hunger cues
Yeah.
back, and that can be a really scary thing for bariatric patients because they had this kind of honeymoon period of not really being that hungry or hungry at all, and just kind of eating based on the clock and the guidelines and their plan. And so when it's back to kind of more normal, then they don't know what to do. And especially for bariatric patients, I feel like, I mean, how many bariatric patients have you met that have never been on a diet? I mean,
Yeah, none.
none. I've been
No.
doing this for over 20 years. I don't think I've met anyone that says, "Oh yeah, I've never tried dieting." So really learning to back away from diet mentality is huge because your brain still wants to go back there. I mean, I think about a client I had that was like, "No, I've got to get back on Weight Watchers," when she was, further out from surgery. I'm like, "No, no, you don't." So I think that that's a big part of it, is just really that first principle, rejecting the diet mentality, is so huge, and important.
And I'm happy to share my lived personal experience. It wasn't about year two that I noticed that I was going back into that diet culture mentality. I was looking for diets to follow. And it was because I had experts like you in my corner who gently offered me a different way of thinking about bariatric eating and a different approach that I have really been able to apply these principles into my own life in a way that works for me. And the more I practice them, the easier it is for me to recognize that diet culture or diet mentality and step away from it and step into eating that is right for me and my body. I know, right? One of the biggest questions or concerns or wonders that we hear from bariatric patients when we talk about intuitive eating is, can I really learn to trust myself? Can I really learn to tap back into my intuition? I just don't think it's possible. So what would you say to somebody that kind of has that thought in their head?
I mean, I would validate that that's a really normal fear because, again, a lot of people are like, I don't remember ever trusting myself. And especially, if obesity was lifelong, they can recall being on diets as a child or getting messages
Hmm.
about, push away from the table or don't eat that or, your sister can have that, but you can't. I mean, just terrible messages. And so they never really learn to trust themselves. But it is something that is with practice. It's a tool. It's a skill
Yeah.
set, and that's really what I hope to achieve via the deep dive is to like teach people these skills, and then you got to practice it. It's an ongoing thing. You can't just listen to me talk for an hour and just be like, oh well, why don't I get it? You have to put it into
Yes.
play. But that's what the deep dive is about. Is kind of challenging you to set goals each week of applying that principle for that week or the two principles for the week. And then, um, we'll talk about what the obstacles are because there will
Yes.
be some.
There will be some. And that's what I am so excited and I appreciate, I think, most about this deep dive. It's one thing to know what the 10 principles of intuitive eating are. It's a completely different thing to learn how to practice and apply them in our own life and then actually have the time built in to do that practice. So each week you're going to be running through some of these principles. You're going to be talking about how we can modify them for our bariatric experience. And then you're going to be offering us the space to practice those things and learn from not only you, but other members of the bariatric community in real time. It's a place to really learn how to do this.
Yeah, and it's not a nutrition plan. It's like I don't want to say a way of life because that sounds kind of cheesy, but it really it is a way to like heal your relationship with food, modify some of your lifestyle. And then really the ultimate goal is to try to kind of deprogram me from diet culture. So because once you start to recognize it in yourself and others, then you kind of become, really in tune and sensitive to like, oh, I like that's bad news, right? That's bad
Yes.
messaging. I don't want to listen to that anymore.
Yes. So that's another question that I wanted to ask you. What is diet culture and how is intuitive eating different from diet culture?
So my first thought is diet culture is just a bunch of BS, but that might not be a very professional answer. But it really, the short of it is that it is BS. Diet culture is all those rules and messages that society has given us from. I mean, it evolved over the years. I think about like in the 80s how it was with like Jane Fonda workouts and everything was
Mm-hmm.
you know low fat or fat free, and how it,
Mm-hmm.
it evolves over time. And then there was like the big kick of like no carb and Atkins and keto and paleo. But it's bigger than just what different fad diets are. It's also the messaging we get and how people talk about food and weight and body in a negative way.
Yeah.
And so it's pervasive and it's toxic. So
Yeah.
intuitive eating, like I said, was really created out of the need to combat diet culture and really like there's something else out there. And really if you think about a really small child that hasn't gotten messages from all, media and outside world. I mean, they eat when they're hungry, they stop when they're full. They're not sneak eating or binge eating or emotionally eating at like age 2. And that's your body is programmed to be intuitive. We just override it with all kinds of messages and pressures from other people, whether it's our own
Yeah.
family, our peers, society, etc.
Yep. I really feel like intuitive eating helps us live our BariNation pillars, which are movement, mindset, metabolic wellness, and community. Intuitive eating does ask that we tap into being mindful about what we are feeling or thinking and experiencing. And intuitive eating is a tool that we can use to get a pause between what we're experiencing, what we're thinking, and then the actions that we take. And our goal as bariatric patients is that that gap, that space, we use to really make decisions that are aligned to not only who we want to be, but the nutritional guidelines that we have to follow now because our anatomy has been altered. So that's very different from diet culture where a diet is telling you exactly what to eat, when to eat, right? It's restrictive, there are rules, and the focus there is on weight loss. With intuitive eating and with our bariatric life, our goal and our focus is overall wellness. It's metabolic wellness. And while what we weigh is one data point that we can use, it is not the complete picture of our health. And intuitive eating asks that we take a very holistic view and approach to our health and apply these principles in a way that allow us to reach that pinnacle of health for whatever that means for us.
Yeah, I think we shorten metabolic and bariatric surgery because it's a mouthful and just say bariatric surgery or MBS.
Yeah,
Some people say weight loss surgery, but I like it's so much more than that. So,
so much.
but it's about metabolic wellness, and diets do nothing for your metabolic wellness. They actually wreck
No.
your metabolism. And so it's very different in that way. And intuitive eating will really hopefully help people reset. You know, and find like find their power of like I don't need to
Yeah.
listen to all these outside things. Now, that's not to
Yes.
say like we all have cravings and whatnot that maybe aren't intuitive. They're more emotional, but intuitive is really listening to your body. And I'll give you a really kind of weird, funny example of my own. So I have not eaten red meat for a variety of reasons since middle school. And a couple years ago, all of a sudden I was like craving burgers like nobody's business. My husband was like, "Has somebody like invaded your body? Like, you want to go out for a burger right now? What is going on?" And like if I had this mindset of like I don't eat red meat and I cannot and I will not, I would not have listened to that. But I listened to it. Ends up my next blood work, I was so severely anemic, like no ferritin stores in my body. Like my body was craving what it needed without, and like it didn't make sense in my head because I'm like, I don't really even like red meat. I haven't had it in like 30 years. What's going on? But I was like very, I mean, severely, anemic to the
Yes.
it was dangerous. So I
Yeah.
listened and was eating, and then I would be like, you know what else I want with this burger? I want a spinach salad. Well, what's you know,
Iron. Yeah.
high in iron. I was just everything I was craving was iron rich with, and it didn't like dawn on me to be like, maybe I'm anemic, but now I know if I start craving those things, I'm like, that's what my body really, really needs because
But
it has none of that in it.
what a fantastic example of how you inadvertently leaned into intuitive eating and trusted yourself. That is, I think, again, it is the number one thing that people are just nervous about. They feel like they have never been able to trust their hunger or trust their cravings because it has misled them. So the thought of learning to trust yourself when you never have is a challenge. But
Absolutely.
that is the work. It is the work of bariatric surgery. We are intuitive beings. It's not that you are not in intuitious. I don't even know if that's a word. You are. You just haven't spent a lot of time practicing it and reconnecting with it. And that's really what this deep dive is all about.
Absolutely. And I like that you mentioned the pillars because it all goes together. And one of the big things that I think kind of gets missed because we were talking about eating it is called intuitive eating is um, engaging in movement and a mindful
Yes.
and joyful way rather than it being like it's exercise and I've got to burn this many
Hmm.
calories and I've got to do it to change my body, or that it's punishment for something, or that it's to really also change your mindset and relationship with movement. So
Yeah.
it's called intuitive eating, but there is that component of it too that I think is huge. And I see, I mean, from looking at your shirt, movement mindset, I'm like, she's the walking
There we
advertisement
go.
of things. Yeah.
There it is. There it is. Yep. Nope. It really is a tool. Especially, I've been practicing it on and off for several years now, and I'm amazed at how the more I think about it, the more I learn about it, the more conversations you and I have with it, I'm able to trust myself more and more. And as you said, we're not going to learn it all in 6 weeks, but we're going to be introduced to this concept of bariatric intuitive eating. You're going to have dedicated time to practice and think about it. You're going to have safe places to ask those questions and see how other people are incorporating it in their own life. And then from there, you can decide, do I want to carry this forward? Is this something that is going to work for me? And you will have the community to do that work in. It's really an amazing opportunity to take a deep dive into something that could be new for you or something that you're returning to in a safe, kind, and compassionate way.
Yeah, I think compassion is the key word there too. It's not about restriction, it's not about deprivation, it's not about, nutrition rules. It's really just kind of learning to honor your hunger and your fullness and understanding what that looks like and feels like in your body, in your mind, and how to heal that relationship with food.
Yes. So, Kelly, I know that you have walked plenty of bariatric patients through bariatric intuitive eating before. This is your first time doing it in BariNation. What have your patients or your clients said in the past after they have learned about bariatric intuitive eating?
I think at first it is very kind of scary and unknown and feels challenging. But I would say kind of the biggest feedback I've gotten is just how freeing it is. And, maybe they don't perfectly apply all the principles all the time. No one does. But just really kind of having that as a fallback on in terms of their mindset and then feeling like, okay, I've got these skills and tools that I can use and practice. And, maybe there is a time that, you're much more stressed out and emotional. It's like one of the principles is cope with your emotions with kindness and not with food. To really kind of draw upon what they've learned in those times, more challenging times, that they've got that to utilize. And it's an ongoing process. Isn't like you said, it's not going to be 6 weeks and you're like, oh, perfect. Like I'm the
Good.
poster
Yeah.
child for intuitive eating. It's something that's going to continually evolve as part of your bariatric journey. But I would say, freedom is one of the big things that people talk about. Um, just being so much more aware of diet culture and kind of, I call it, and I sold this from a treatment center years and years ago, but they would say, catch it, check it, change it. And
Oh,
so if you
yes.
can catch yourself engaging in it or, kind of getting sucked into it. And then if you're more aware of it, being able to do something differently. But it's so automatic and so ingrained and so entrenched that it's just that awareness piece is huge.
Yes. I heard this recently on a podcast and it applies to this. The easy thing is often the conditioned thing. So living life as we lived before surgery is going to feel easier. It's what we were conditioned to do, to believe in, and to act on. After surgery, we want to learn how to live life differently, or we want the things that we were already doing to be more effective. And really, that's what bariatric intuitive eating is all about. We are learning something new, and we are working hard to change what we think, what we believe, and the actions that we take when it comes to our hunger, to our fullness, to the food that we choose to eat. This really does provide us patients a roadmap with how we can do that. And when it's guided by an expert like yourself, who so deeply understands the why behind each of these principles, it is a winning combination.
I certainly hope so. That's the goal. I think that, yeah, I think the why is important. And, just as much as like the how to apply is kind of why do it? Why do something different? And that can be really exciting for folks too. They're like, I get to try something really, I mean, you've already taken a big
Yes.
risk to have surgery and kind of change your whole life upside down from inside out. And I think that, it's another part of that big change.
Yes, absolutely. Well, friends, if you have listened to this and you are really curious, you are ready to not only learn the 10 principles of intuitive eating, but practice applying them to your bariatric life, this deep dive experience is for you. Kelly will be working with you in a small cohort style online virtual environment for 6 weeks. All of the recordings and materials are yours for life, not just while you are a member. And you will be tapped into a safe, kind, and compassionate community that understands what the work is all about. So we invite you to join us. If you're a member of the community, you can sign up for the deep dive cohort right there in BariNation. And if you're not yet a member, head to barination.mn.co to become a member and join today. We are really excited to work with you. And Kelly, we're thrilled to welcome you to the BariNation community.
Thank you. I'm thrilled as well. I'm really excited to spread this kind of to a much wider net than my clients. So I'm excited.
All right, friends. Well, we hope we see you in the BariNation community soon. Bye, friends.